Winding up. Hi there. We are now, I believe, live. It's so exciting. And I'm here with Prudence Kalu, and she's with All Things Possible. And we're here tonight to discuss your purpose and kind of have a little fun. Maybe not to be here as long as we have been some other nights, but a little bit of a breather and a short stint to share and kind of have dialogue. How are you doing tonight, Prudence? Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me again. I am well. It is what is it? Wednesday night. I look forward to the week, just moving along. And so it's Wednesday hump day, they say, right? And
It's midway.
midway. Yeah. I had a very productive day today too. How's your day been?
It's really good. I just signed up to do a podcast in
Nice.
January, on January 2nd at midnight my time. It's from a podcasters that are in California, so it's at 9 p.m. their time.
Okay.
on the I guess it's on Tuesday after New Year's.
Nice.
So I'm going to have to take lots of vitamins between now and then to be up that late. But I thought, these days you can do things by Zoom or I think they do it with a call in actually.
Yeah.
And so life today is so much easier. I was listening to someone earlier that was talking about how she was visiting on her purpose and she would send these reels to the different, I guess, playlist homes or houses and had to package them up and send them off. And now, we've got this crazy technology where you can just, I don't know, communicate over the computer and don't have to send
Wherever
any
you
kind of
want.
DVD or 8-track or anything like that.
Yeah.
The advancements are just staggering.
I know.
So
And they keep on evolving too. It's crazy. It's amazing.
I know it's really cool when you think about it.
Yeah,
So
I think so too. When I talk to people like in different parts of the world, and I'm thinking I'm sitting in Central Florida, I'm talking to you in Brazil, or um, I had a lot of people from Australia or England. I know, so it's so cool to know that I can be here and still communicate and share messages with people, all over the world. I think that's pretty cool too.
yeah, and it's just fun. Yeah,
So
I've
I have a
networked with.
question to start off with, if you don't
Sure.
mind. It just
Yeah.
popped into my head too, and it has to do with what you just said. So, finding your purpose. Do you find that as we evolve, our purpose change, or does our purpose stay the same throughout our lives?
So your purpose is energy,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing is the byproduct of the energy created. So as you are in the process of doing whatever it is that you love doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If all of a sudden something changes within the components of the mix of what you're doing, and now what gave you great joy is different and it doesn't feel that way anymore, then you're meant to move away from that
Mm-hmm.
and move toward something that gives you that energetic kind of
Cool.
elixir,
Yeah.
so that you're never meant to be static and stay in one position or one thing. So that's why your purpose really can be anything. It
Changes.
is the alignment with the energy that is the important component. The thing is the byproduct.
Yeah. I like that. I think that means that it's in the change. It can be changeable, or it probably stays around the same um meaning. So like if you love helping or healing or what like that, but it changes too. I find that throughout life there's many times where I thought this is what I want to do, I love this, and then after a while it's like, okay, it's all right, okay, something different, and so I
Yeah.
feel like, yeah.
I talked to someone the other day who was absolutely in what they were wanting to do.
Hmm.
And some of the people that were in the mix of what was being done changed. And so then the dynamics change, right? Because people create energy and
Yes.
their energy flows in one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden it didn't resonate for her. And I've talked to a fella who kind of the same thing, and it didn't resonate for him anymore. And so then you look for something else that gives you that energy. That's why when you're looking for your purpose, you're always asked to feel as if what you wanted to make manifest is already here. So you want to get into the space of how it would feel if you were to do that thing and it were to connect in a way that would light you up. You want to feel that component because it's a connection and a connector to what you want to experience, and you draw it in because you've created a thought form in another dimension. And now you're bringing that thought form in more a complete status into the physical realm.
Love that. I heard you said something too in one of your videos that was talking about purpose, and you said not everyone has a purpose. And is that can you explain a little bit about that too for me? Like, not everyone has a purpose. Then what is their reason or purpose?
So in the third book in the Purpose Trilogy, that's now in the Greater Purpose, the elders discussed and gave a teaching or understanding that not everyone has a purpose. And because I thought everybody had a purpose.
Yeah.
So what I'm understanding is that there are different evolutions, and they go through it in much more detail in the book, but they talk about that there are different evolutions. They said, just as America has many that come to our shores and come here to have this life, there are many that want to have that earth experience. And so there was the opportunity to come in because spiritual essence wanted to understand how something felt. And in the spiritual genre, there's not the ability to feel by having created that energy. I think there can be an attachment to someone in the physical where there is the ability to feel, but I don't think spiritual essence can create something that feels. That's something unique to this earth platform. That's why so many chose to embody here, because they wanted to understand how something felt. Yeah. And so there are evolutions that have come for a different reason. And so what they said is don't assume. And the reason I had asked the question, which was interesting that they answered it in the book, was I had a conversation with a gentleman one time, and he was having a conversation with, I don't know, an employee or someone. And he was telling me the story that they said, well, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't really feel like I have a purpose. He goes, everybody has a purpose, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you need to get down and figure out what your purpose is. And so I was sharing, I made the, you know, the full 360, and I went back and I said, I don't know that everyone has a purpose. And so there are other reasons and rationales that others have come into embodiment here. They didn't go into that detail to say what those examples or those circumstances were, but just to share that it's not something that you can presume that everyone has. So so what I've learned is that if someone is following this teaching or this understanding, or is looking for books on the purpose, or looking for people that discuss the purpose, then you have a purpose, right?
Yeah.
So it's an election that an individual knows inwardly that they need to find this thing. The difficulty is that the mind will often say, oh, that's so difficult to find. You've tried to find that before and you haven't been successful. Why do you think you're going to find it now?
Yeah.
And the mind will distract and lead off course because the mind doesn't understand spirituality and doesn't understand the objectives of the soul. And so it tries to put you back in the path of alignment with the mind. And really our objective is to become more aligned with what we are truly aligned with, which is that conscious awareness, that soul essence that we're a part of. So it's recognizing and becoming that conscious awareness that looks upon all of that and really monitors what the mind suggests, because the mind can take you down a dark path. The mind can introduce all sorts of questions that make one fearful, that make one apprehensive, that make one exist in a day that would otherwise be a beautiful day, except that it tries to drag it down a notch or two because it's more in a fight or flight type of mentality.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my short answer.
Huh? Say it again.
I said that's my short answer.
Yeah.
Well, there's
No,
so
that's
much
good.
to everything. I mean, it's not like there's so many components. There's so many moving parts. When I get
Yeah.
questions sometimes, it leads into other things because
Oh,
it's almost like a
goodness.
spoke on the wheel of all these different components that
Yeah.
move in tandem.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that happens to me too. Sometimes I like to be able to talk with people who is on that same thing, because as you start speaking, like you said, and then there's more that comes and more that comes, and it's almost like sometimes I have to say, okay, hold on, let's just stop for a second, because it's so much like to take in, all the
Right.
information. Yeah. But
Exactly.
I can see that. I can see some people are here for, and the experience, I'm sure, has a purpose in it, but it's not, say, necessarily a purpose that they have to, I don't want to say fulfill, but that they have to maybe figure out even, right? It's just experiencing it will bring that purpose to them.
Yeah, I think it's the intent. Really, it starts with
Yeah.
intent of wanting to know what it is. You have to start there because you could have all sorts of signs and insights as to what your purpose is, but if you're not looking for your purpose, then you'll never see any of that.
Right. And what's the purpose of finding our purpose?
It's why we're here. It's why
That's
our
right.
soul chose to
I'm crying.
have this earth experience. It's why
Yeah.
we were born. It's more important, I think. It's certainly more important than I recognized when I was first searching.
To knowing your purpose, you mean, right?
Yeah, I didn't, I just thought it was a thing that I was supposed to know, and I was kind of curious as to what it was. And every time I would try to connect with it, I always got the mental direction, oh, you're not going to find this. It's very elusive and it's very
Yeah.
difficult to find. Why do you think you're going to find it? And so the mind really takes you off course, and that's why it's important to know that you're not your thoughts and you're not your mind. Because when you think that you're generating that sort of Q&A session that's going on in your mental box, when you recognize that it really is separate from you, then you can look at life and the things that come about mentally differently.
I can see that. I want to say I feel like my purpose, regardless of what it changes and how I do it, it's the basis of it, and I think most people this too, is obviously to expand on love, and for me, I've had that tested in many different ways too, with people who are not so lovable, to learn to love them, and family members and friends and all that. What would you say? Well, I feel like I said, most people is based on love, but have you found your purpose
I'm in my purpose. Yeah.
in your purpose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my purpose is service, and it's worldwide service. And
Yeah.
it's literally because it was the mission of that. So the very first book, or the very first chapter of the book Awaken, was the first personality of my soul. So the soul has different incarnations with different personalities. And in that very first lifetime, that individual that was her mission as well. And she left embodiment prematurely and did not enact her purpose. And so many, 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 many lifetimes later, here I am. And it's the same objective because it's the soul's purpose. It's the soul's objective. So it's sitting and contemplating from the heart space what you believe that purpose to be. And the thing I would caution to all the listeners tonight and in the future is that you want to get into that space from the heart center, because the mental box loves the rightness of choice. The mental box wants to say, well, I already knew the answer. I know this and this and this, and this is what it is. But if you only ask mentally, then you'll only have a mental aha. So you release the mental knowingness and you enter into the whimsical wonderment of the child, not predetermining what it is, but kind of going in with where you think you want to start, and you sit with it.
Mhm.
And you may sit with it, as we talked about the last time, for a few hours, or you may sit with it for a few days or a few weeks,
Mhm.
because it's a big enterprise and you don't want to be going in one direction and find out later on that it's really not the right direction, or it's a component of the direction that you seek. And there's more to the equation, because the original purpose is a more vast and is the greater purpose for the individual. So there are many things that would be considered a component that could be actually the life component, the life mission, the life purpose, as opposed to the original one, which is the bigger, more vast purpose.
Yeah, I want something I want to add to that you just said. That if you first center yourself in your heart space too, why that's important. I feel like even when that's so important, that even when you've done that and you've gone in a direction where you felt your heart space has been or is leading you, and then you find out it's not, it has served another purpose in finding the purpose or doing your purpose or being in your purpose anyway. So being in your heart space, I find that sometimes I will get an answer, a message that seems like it's the answer that I'm looking for, only to find out that it's not, but it was leading me to something that I was meant to hear or learn or whatever, you know. So I think heart space is important too, in first trying to figure out what your purpose is, or moving from your purpose or being in your purpose. I think that is core, is it from heart space first.
So, what the elders will say is that wherever you are is the perfect place in which to be.
Absolutely.
But what they'll also say, and they don't say it every time, because they believe that those who are following these teachings hear something, and for them to repeat it every time would be, in a degree, not respectful to the individual, because you then incorporate what they say and you do with what works for you, and you maybe deal with later what you deal with later.
Yeah.
But what the intention is that the reason that you focus on the heart space initially is it sets a trajectory for your day. So it's the way that you begin the day.
Yeah.
And it's the law of attraction, in that you've established that connection and that connectivity with the heart and the intent and attention there. And then that energy goes out. And so your day actually has a different fingerprint, footprint, a different image than it would have had you begun simply mentally.
Yes.
And then what happens with me is, whenever I get into a discussion, so I know I've aligned that way, I do grounding, I give gratitude, I send out universal love based on the elders' definition of universal love, so that, because I think there's a lot of different definitions out there. And if we're not getting the results that we want or expect, then perhaps maybe some of the components that we're doing don't have all the ingredients that they need. And so after you've done all the different things that they suggest doing, which I think there are like 10 different steps that can be done each morning, and you figure out kind of how to do it in a little bit streamlined version if you want to get it anchored for the day and then move throughout the day in an abundant sort of way. But then you, throughout the day, like periodically, I'll realign with my heart space, because we get into current situations or circumstances
Yeah, there's lots of energies out here. Yeah.
that might take us off course or take us out of alignment with what we've set up. So it's not like we can set up something and we're invincible after that, and we've got it all
Right.
mapped out for the rest of the day.
I
So you
wish.
do a check-in. And when I was first connecting with them, they would ask for connection like 20 times throughout the day. And whether I would remember or not, or would do it, I would try to do it quite often.
Yeah.
Now I don't have to do it as much, because I've developed that muscle and I have that alignment with them. And so it's not as pertinent or critical that I maintain it, because I've developed it to where it's more in place and in cue than it was before having strengthened that muscle.
Yeah.
And so then when you get to a circumstance where you're asking the question, then you just want to never assume that you're still connected to the heart space because you did it 8 hours ago or 6 hours ago, and because maybe things happened in between that got
Yeah.
you center. And when it's an important question, you want to just be sure to always start that process again and really make sure, and then ask inwardly if you're connected in that way, because the mind loves to get involved. The mind loves to give immediate answers. And if it's an important question and you're connecting to your that higher part of you, you may not get an immediate answer. In fact, I would be surprised if you did, unless you really got that relationship or that alignment
Yeah.
streamlined in a really strong way. But, we're in the physical world. And as long as we're in the physical world, we're going to have times where we align with what the mind is suggesting, which bring us down and make it more of a negative experience. And the job really is to be that mental monitor so that you don't ever stay in that space long enough that it can shift your perspective, shift your energy, take you off center. That's the objective.
Nice.
I've got my heater going over here. I've got to turn it down or I'm going to explode. There.
What was it?
It's a heater.
Oh.
It's chilly
Is
here.
Is it?
Well, it's been, it's, and I just get chilly for whatever reason. So I have it right here, and it's like, it's either really hot
Oh, really?
and so, yeah. So, I mean, if you start hearing like a sizzling noise, it's my skin probably burning. So I thought it was probably a good idea to turn that down.
Yeah. Well,
This is fun.
Yeah, I know. I was just going to say, I think this has been fun and
Yeah.
a really quick, intimate look at purpose too. I don't know if anybody's viewing because you can see that, but if anybody has any questions, this would be a good time.
And I would say,
later.
Yeah, and I would just say that although the book launch was on the 20th, I really encourage, because I know what these books are. And if you've not yet gotten your copy of Awaken or The Greater Purpose, I would get actually them both in tandem, because one is more of a guide where you go through steps to enact different things that will move you to release energy that's been trapped within.
Yeah.
And that's beginnings of disease and illness. And then The Greater Purpose, which gives you so much information as to what this life is all about. And so, yeah, as you're reading, Prudence, as you start to read those books, you might highlight some of those.
I was just going to tell you, I was waiting until you finished talk. Yeah, mine's is really close to my desk where I work, and I was going to call my daughter to come get it, but I'll do it our next live and show. Yeah, I do. I told you too, even sometimes for me, just lately reading books, when I don't have time to sit and read the whole book, I will go and ask my spirit, what message do you have for me? And I'll just open up the book. And I told you I've done that even with your book too. And it hits on a message for me on that day, the energy or whatever the theme of the day is. I feel like even though if you wake up and have the same routine every day has a theme to it, a feel to it, right? When you wake up. And so there's usually some type of message that's coming very predominant in that day. And the book will address it for me in a way that's like, oh, I love the way that it's saying it in this way. And
that's
then again,
your parameters. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I've said this to you before. I feel like a lot of teachers, even though they're saying very much similar things, there's always a different perspective from everyone else and their experience that they're able to express it in a way that in your life you can get it, So I would encourage people to check out the book. I'm going to post the link, or Robin will post the link to the Amazon page where they can find the book, and the website where they can sign up for the free, I think it's 10. Is it 10 what is it? Free 10,
Oh, 10 steps
10
to
steps.
transform your life. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's a good.
It's how to set up your meditational practice. It's the 10
Yeah.
steps that you want to, establish and get anchored. And I'm going to put advancedenergetics.org in
Yeah,
the,
the links in there. I
in
know
the,
a lot of people, when this is watched on All Things Possible, a lot of the people in there are familiar with meditation. But I find that even in the 5 years that I'm doing meditation, actually, it's more than five. I've been saying 5 years for about 4 years now. So in about the 8 or 9 years, however long it's been that I've been consistently doing meditation, I was very consistent, nonstop with a break for 5 years. And then all of a sudden something happened and I just was like, every time I went to go do it, it was almost not a stop. It was like a stop. But then what happened was I realized that my routine for meditation set up differently. Um, and I don't know why that was, but it was helpful. Something happened. And so the 10 steps, my point is, would be a good way too, that even if you're familiar with meditation, to try something different to, just like everything else in life, we have to try things differently sometimes in our lives. So I would suggest or encourage people to check out the 10 steps. It might help you in your meditation that you already do now, or if you don't know meditation, that's a good way to learn how to apply it in your life.
I agree. And I would say too, that if you have times where you feel down and out, and if you have times where you're not happy or the mind kind of brings you down, know that you're in a mind game
Yeah.
and you have a choice to engage with that thought or to replace it with another thought that makes you feel happy. So it's becoming that mental monitor. And if you are having those experiences, then perhaps you need to expand your practice beyond what your practice is today.
Nice.
So,
Nicely said. Well, this has been fun.
yes. Thanks for joining tonight. And
Yeah.
thanks for those who see this or see this in the future. We look forward to the next genre of
Yeah.
our conversation next week.
If you have any questions, anybody's watching this throughout the week, we are trying to do this every Wednesday. So if you pop in the questions even later on and you view this, we'll keep an eye on the comments so we can answer them next week if you guys have.
Thanks.
All right.
Appreciate it.
All
Have
right.
a good
Love
one.
you guys. You have a good night.
Signing
Thank
off.
you.